What motivated you to study criminology, to getting into law enforcement, etc.?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the inner cities of North Philadelphia in Pennsylvania during a time in the 1990s where the entire community was just saturated with drugs and violence. And I was part of that. I had survived a home invasion, was involved in a shooting.
Philadelphia, right?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Involved in a shooting to protect my brother at 14 years of age. I seen several of my friends who were gunned down and killed in front of me. And I said, there has to be more. There can't just be violence and drugs. And so I decided what I was going to do after being a pretty good athlete in high school. I said, I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to explore going to Florida State
So what were you
University.
specialized in? What sport did you love the most?
Oh gosh, I tell you, I played them all. I excelled at baseball, excelled at football, was a pretty good wrestler, and I stayed active. It kept me out of the streets. If I was playing sports, I wasn't in the communities where all the harm and violence was occurring. Right. And going through high school, I was all city in baseball, all city in football, and Florida State University at the time, they had Coach Bobby Bowden, outstanding man. They were winning all the national championships, and they were doing a pretty good job. And I said, man, I can do that.
Yes.
I can. Let me explore. Let me give this a
now,
shot.
I'm going to butt in here and there because I got to think like the audience,
Sure.
the viewers here. So when you said you're an athlete, I'm like, okay, what were you good at? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So continue. Yeah.
And so I used the sports as an avenue to get out of the city and to launch my professional career. I arrived at Florida State. I had originally walked onto the team, non-scholarship athlete. Was able to work really hard, perform to a point where the coaching staff said, hey, this young man's very talented. We need to make him a starter. We need to get him on the team. We need to offer him a scholarship and make him part of this program. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I played in the national championship, won the ACC championship.
And that is in Florida?
That's right here in Florida.
So when did you move from Philadelphia to
1998. I left 1998.
1998.
Now the interesting story that adds into this, I left Philadelphia with roughly $500 in my pocket. I had saved up after high school, cleaned up in barbershops, took several miscellaneous jobs, paid for a plane ticket, put my deposit down on an apartment I never seen, and then I just took a leap of faith and left.
That's why it takes a man like you to be a sheriff, or this sheriff, because you can improvise. You just made things happen from $500.
From $500 and a lot of effort, a lot of faith, and a lot of just commitment to finding another way to succeed. For every time there was a failure, for example, there was a time when I was in college and I ran out of money and I couldn't pay my utility bills. I had to go out and buy candles. And when my utilities were shut off, I had to figure out ways to take showers on campus so that I can go to school. But I never gave up. I never found it as an excuse not to continue forward.
Well, that's an interesting story. Not many Americans can share that story, that you had to go and buy candles when you could not afford to pay the light bill.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hungry days. I can recall spending just enough money to buy, 5 or 6 boxes of pizza to put into the refrigerator to last me for several weeks. But it was all character building things. These all helped me develop to where I'm at now. And after being successful in collegiate sports, I always want to get back to service. When I was younger, I was always the kid that appreciated the law enforcement costume for Halloween. If you look at some of my old photos, I had always been a law enforcement officer. And then, of course, 9/11 happened, and the country was shook. I was a junior in school at the time. I'll never forget where I was at. I was in Latin class. And just like most of the entire world, I was watching this thing happen on TV, and I said, that's it. It's time for me to move on. And shortly after, I went to the coaching staff, explained to them that I would not be playing my senior year. I was turning down a starting position, and I was going to start focusing on joining law enforcement, and here I am today.
So with that kind of upbringing, that kind of sacrifice and efforts that you put in to educate yourself, to be somebody in society, that speaks volumes as to being the sheriff. You will really and truly understand what people need out there, how you can lead as a true leader, and how you can make things happen to all classes, It has
been an absolute huge character building element in my life, and it's also brought forth humility to understand the complications that exist in every facet of this community. We have a lot of struggling people in this community of all different ethnic backgrounds, and they don't have the resources, they may not have the funding. And so when I see young kids on the street that are involved in some type of crime because they're trying to figure out a way to eat, I'm sympathetic to it because I was that young kid. Now, you know, having arrived after Florida State University and starting my career here in Broward County, most people don't realize I started my law enforcement career in Coral Springs, which is just
Okay, so
north.
first you went into the regular police department.
Correct.
Okay.
I went into the
Coral
local
Springs.
Coral Springs Police Department, which is in the northwest part of the county. Started my career there, and it was interesting. I ran the gauntlet pretty quick. My first year coming out as a patrolman, I was really successful, had apprehended a lot of suspects, really bad, violent suspects. And it was because I understood the streets. I had grew up on them. And immediately after, I had one of my sergeants come up and recruited me into narcotics. I became an undercover detective, worked a RICO case, or a major racketeering case with the FBI, and really had a chance to see every part of Broward County. And having success with that case, it opened up an opportunity for me. And I became the first black special operations detective in a burglary unit, became the first black SWAT operator in the history of the SWAT team there. And then later I became the first black sergeant and the first supervisor in the history of Coral Springs.